reserved for rebuttal. Opponents of each proposed zoning decision shall then be allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion concerning each zoning decision. The presentation times may not be reduced but may be extended by majority vote, provided they are expanded equally for proponents and opponents. Anyone wishing to speak must come to the microphone and give their name to the and address to the city clerk. Do not speak unless you have the microphone and have been recognized. So, call the public hearing to order. I miss doing that, you know. Virtually, we didn't get a chance to do that. All right, the first public hearing we have this evening is PZ 2020-579 and 580, which is 5450 Peachtree Boulevard rezoning Chick-fil-A. I believe they asked to be deferred for another month. That's correct. So without objection, this Chick-fil-A Peachtree Boulevard rezoning will be deferred till next month's work session, which is June, I think. So the next item then is PZ 2020-605, which is 3229 Stratford Arms Drive, DCI, Avalon Townhomes. Matt?
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is a major modification to an existing DCI and one waiver request. The property address is 3229 Stratford Arms Drive and the site's zoned Village Residential BR. The lot is approximately 6.5 acres. The applicant is requesting to propose an existing condition of approval and also a waiver to not bury the utilities. This waiver is from section 350-25, which requires all existing electric and communication utilities to be placed underground as part of development. This PUD, this was previously approved as a PUD back in 2016 development, and also a zoning map amendment from NR1 to BR. The reason why this is a major modification, not just a waiver, is because they're changing a condition. There was also a condition placed on the development that those utilities on Stratford Arms and Chamblee Tucker be buried. So the application is to change that condition and ask for the waiver. There's no changes to the site plan. It's still proposed to be a 46 unit townhome development. If you're familiar with the site, there are some large transmission site poles and wires on the site. Those are not required to be buried, obviously. It's the smaller poles, the local service poles that you see that would need to be buried. The applicant did provide a non-binding cost estimate for Georgia Power that was dated February 10th, 2020, and that cost estimate to bury those utilities was $387,000. That does not include any other utilities that may be on those poles. I did want to remind you that we do have a fee in lieu option if the utilities cannot be buried for some reason, and that is currently about $1,300 a linear foot. With that amount, the total fee required for fee in lieu would be $840,000. Here's the aerial showing the site. You can see it is currently under development. It's been stalled a few times, but it is currently cleared. And then the site plan, no changes there, just to not bury the utilities. The first line there, that's the frontage on Stratford Arms, and then the second line is the frontage on Chamblee Tucker. And then some photos showing you the existing conditions on Stratford Arms and again Chamblee Tucker. Since the hardship is financial, staff has recommended denial. We did recommend some conditions of approval if council wishes to approve. One condition that's not on here but is in your staff report is that for you to consider is to have them pay a fee in lieu for the actual burial as opposed to the larger amount for the linear foot calculation if you so desire. And that's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Matt. All right, we'll have 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in favor. Please come with the microphone, give your name and address to the city clerk.
Hello everybody. I'm sorry I don't feel good. Try my best to say what I want to say. My name is Farid Milani. 33 years I am building around the Cap County. I build super good houses and I'm a quality builder. I bought this project to build good houses unfortunately, it delay after delay. 2 years we have to have a delay for switches and for the sewer and the zoning. 1 year for the going for the storm, go through the subdivision, another subdivision. And right now I'm in the point for closure for subdivision and my home, which I borrowed money to put it in the subdivision to finish it. Because of the delay after delay, I ran out of money, and I was trying to sell it, get my house out. Unfortunately, they told me I have that burying the electricity line, and I was they told us how much it costs and all this, and really I am in the point. I'm losing my home. I don't want to lose my home. I want to, you put yourself in my place. It just, I am bad shape money-wise, and with this, they told me I have to pay. I really don't have nothing. This is the stumbling block. I cannot sell the property. Everybody was waiting to see what's gonna happen tonight. Please, I need your help to save my house. I don't need to make any money. I just wanna sell the subdivision, pay off my house to save my house. I'm to retirement age, and I cannot afford that, lose my house. Please, whatever you are can help me. Don't charge me anything. I really appreciate, and I need your help. God bless you all.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. Anyone else care to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak in opposition?
Mayor, I did have one other person that was on the list to speak on this one.
Okay.
Her name is, I think it's Veja, is that correct?
Reza.
Reza.
Yeah.
Did you want to speak?
Well, I think I'll come over there. I was coming to speak if Mr. Milani, due to his pain, if he got stuck or couldn't explain, then I was his backup. But he explained everything. Basically, he's here at your mercy because of his financial, it's truly bad. The worst part is that his house is on the line. Once he goes through foreclosure, he loses his home. If it was just a subdivision, he could let it go, even though he's, invested money there. But because of the house that he borrowed money to put in the subdivision, is in this situation. So that's basically it. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. So I apologize. I should have been looking to you to see if there's anybody that signed up, because we do have sign-ups for this evening, so. All right, very good. So apparently everybody signed up for opposition on this?
No, sir.
Okay, so then I will ask the council, did they have any questions of the staff or the applicant on this? No? Okay, we'll move on then. The next item is, and so that y'all know, we'll be taking action on these items. Mr. Maloney, I know you said this evening, the council will take these back up on Tuesday evening and vote on it then.
Thank you, sir.
The next item then is PZ 2020-610, which is 2335 Woodacres Road, DCI, also known as Woodacres Homes.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is an application for DCI with concurrent variances and waivers. The property is zoned NR1 neighborhood residential and is approximately 2.5 acres. In this case, the applicant's requesting DCI to construct 5 new single-family detached homes. The variances, the first two variances are related to not installing the streetscape on a new public road. The third variance is related to development within the 50-foot and 75-foot land stream buffers. The two waivers are related to roadways. The first is to allow a shared driveway, and then the second is to eliminate the requirement of a turnaround on a dead-end street. The applicant is proposing to clear the entire site and the existing structures on it and construct 5 approximately 4,000 square foot single-family homes with a maximum building footprint of 2,000 square feet. I'll show you here on the map, but there is a unimproved right-of-way that runs between Claremont Terrace and Woodacres. That the new road would be constructed from Claremont Terrace. It would not be constructed to connect those two streets. It would only be connected to the new driveway for the new homes. As I mentioned, there is encroachment into both the city's 75-foot and 50-foot stream buffers. There's also a substantial amount of flood zone on the property, which you'll see on the included site plans. This is the aerial map showing the lot, heavily wooded. And then you can see here the survey. The property boundary is in yellow, and then that red area is the unimproved right-of-way that connects between Woodacres Road and Claremont Terrace, and which is currently unimproved and just a driveway for a portion. Here is the site plan showing the location of the lots and the homes, also the driveway connection and new street. I do want to show you the stream buffers and how those work on the site. This blue line is the top of bank, so that's from the area from which we measure the stream buffers. This yellow line represents the limits of disturbance. This is the 75-foot stream buffer, so that is where you can have disturbance, you just cannot have any disturbance. The blue area shows the impervious surface being requested to be placed in that area. It's about 4,500 square feet. The next red line is the 50-foot buffer, which does not allow any disturbance or impervious surface. That orange area shows the amount of impervious surface in the 50-foot buffer. It's about 400 square feet. And then there's an additional approximately 10,000 square feet of disturbance in that buffer, which is not permitted without a variance. The applicant is proposing a row of trees along that driveway, but again, no official streetscape improvements in the area. The applicant has submitted architectural elevations, which you can see attached, 4-sided, and also some renderings. And then we have some site photos. It shows the driveway, there's some gravel, mostly dirt, that runs back to the previous single-family residence. And then you can see the stream there on the right, and then some more photos of the interior of the site showing the structures and the wooded areas. Since the requests are self-created through the subdivision, we have recommended denial of this DCI and variances. However, we do have some recommended conditions for your consideration if you wish to approve this application, including requiring some pervious materials, some language regarding the shared driveway construction, and requiring streetscape on at least one side of the new street and driveway. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Matt. John, do you have anything to add to that? I do not. Okay, last time I forgot you were even sitting over there. All right, very good. So we'll ask anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come up to the microphone. Let us know who you are.
Maybe we excuse?
Yes, sir.
If there's no
Yeah, yes, sir.
Thank you. We good?
Yes.
Good afternoon or good evening. My name is Miguel Yala San Martin. I'm an architect and part of this development. We designed this keeping in mind all the limitations that we have, bearing in mind that we need to find a balance between the development, the financial situation of this, and the conditions that we have. We feel that we have designed something that has a minimal impact on the environment given the situation. The sidewalk that is being required is not going to be used by anyone but the people that live in that area, since this is a dead end. We did it so there's no retaining walls, tried not to mess with the environment. The lights, again, are going to be used only for the people that are going to be living there, so we can do some lights, not necessarily the ones that you are requesting. We feel that the encroachment in the different buffers is just minimal. We don't feel it's really necessary to go to that extent. I also have our civil engineer that's here present. He's going to be more technical than I am. I'm just a simple architect. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Anyone
Mayor,
else?
question, I have a Daniel Castro.
Sorry,
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just still not used to the whole process.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Castro. I'm the owner of Sandy Construction. So we're trying to acquire this lot that, as you already saw, try to build 5 homes. Some of the comments that the staff recommended to like this turnaround is almost impossible because if we do that, we're gonna pretty much be on top of the creek. We are providing a T turnaround inside the community. So pretty much if someone, because that was one of the comments was if someone made a mistake, it comes into that dead end, we'll have to go inside the 5 homes and pretty much turn around. That's one of the reasons we create that T-turn, also for the fire department, so they can turn around and the trash trucks as well. The other, these homes are modern. Some of the comments that I saw in the letter is like they're in compliance with all the small homes that are in the area. There is one home that actually they kind of took the top off on Claremont Terrace and kind of tried to do like a modern contemporary style. Not the best representation of modern, but seems like the area is changing. We're based on Dunwoody, also is a established neighborhood like this one, which we have a lot of split foyers, ranches, older homes. We have built around 6, 7 new construction homes, all modern in Dunwoody area. We have no complaints. All the community is very happy with the design that we provide, and we're also helping the community turning the kind of facelift of the area. We have had some experiences with staff members in Dunwoody when Andrew, forgot his name, but last name, but one of the engineers, he was working, and actually we applied for a variance in Dunwoody a while back, and he and Mr. Mueller were part of that team, so he kind of knows like what kind of work we do. So pretty much I want to put you into consideration that the plan is to improve the neighborhood. The plan is to get, unique, this much would be like unique subdivision of custom homes, which is not in Georgia yet. So I would like to just put that on the table for you to consider.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
Emmy?
Mayor, I do have one more person speaking in favor, and it's Juan Del Rio.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Juan Del Rio. I'm here, of course, as the civil engineer for the subdivision. I designed considering, we went to multiple iterations of road and lot subdivision as to what we can come up with the best design, minimizing the impact in the buffers, as Danielle mentioned. I do want to make sure to point out that most of that intrusion into the 50-foot buffer for the impervious area is because of that road turnaround, and not so much because of the homes. It will be only the first home coming into the neighborhood. That little triangular piece of the home will be encroaching into the 50-foot. Other than that, none of the houses will be encroaching into the 50-foot buffer. We're providing heavy vegetation along the development to avoid any issues with neighbors, and I think we're really trying hard to make the most of the improvements we can, yet keeping into consideration the cost. Any questions?
Thank you. Emmy, do we have anybody else?
We do. We have somebody who is in opposition but wrote next to their name neutral, and it's
It's me.
Mr. Lee.
Yeah, I didn't have.
Can you
Please
press
come
the
up to the microphone.
Yeah, I wasn't for or against. I kind of just wanted. I haven't seen the plans. If I'm not mistaken, this is not a flood zone.
Okay, so this is just public comment. So we may get to some of your questions answered here, after this part of it. But it's really for you to stand up there and let us know what you think.
I'm so in between. I think it could be something that could be a positive impact as far as economically for the community. But I just don't see how you guys could fit all of that right there.
Okay.
So
Anything else? No? Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it. Do we have anybody else signed up to speak?
No, sir, not on this item.
Not on this item, very good. So, we'll go ahead and move to this item, you know, the public work part of this and have the conversation. Does the council have any questions for the staff, Darren?
I do. I have one question for the staff and one question for the applicant. So in your report, you were talking about some of the disturbance and impervious and buffer variance for the driveway. Does that, sorry, can you hear me?
That's better, thank you.
Does that fall under any of the exemptions under state law or not? And just kind of a second to that, does our ordinance mirror those exemptions, or could you be exempt under state law for a stream crossing or buffer encroachment and not under the city ordinance?
Typically that's only for perpendicular crossings, but I can definitely look into that.
Okay. And then, thank you. And then for the applicant, as I look at this, a lot of the disturbance, particularly between the 50 and 75 foot buffer that you've requested for impervious surface, looks like what appears to be decks. I'd just like to understand the notion of why you would request an impervious deck in a case like that, when it seems like you could easily meet that pervious requirement.
One of y'all from the team, please come up and answer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I was trying to look at the map.
Yeah, if I'm looking at that, between 50 and 75 foot, you're allowed to put pervious surface but not impervious. It looks like a significant portion of that is rear decks. Why was the choice made to make those impervious versus pervious?
Right, so that goes back to the type of homes that we're putting on the, you are right, these are not, this plan is not truly a heavily condensed impervious. Like if you see, like the blue really represents the little areas that we have of impervious, so it'll be like roads and the roofs inside of the 75-foot buffer. But really outside of that, we don't have any added impervious areas really that we could remove from the site. Like we have the bare minimum to kind of make it work for the fire and the residents' traffic flow.
I guess I'll ask that differently as well, because I'm not opposed to infill development. I think most folks in this room would probably acknowledge that. But it seems like you're trying to do a lot on a very difficult site and forcing it in when a lot of that disturbance outside of the shared driveway encroachment could be avoided probably by a reduction of just a single unit. So how did we get here, I guess, and have there been any conversations about what you're trying to do with the neighbors? I know you talked about buffering to avoid opposition. Have you actually reached out to those 3 most impacted neighbors?
Yeah, so pretty much, I mean, the idea originally was to put 6 homes. After we met with Andrew, we decided to 5 homes in order to comply with the 8,000 square foot per lot. In order, like this is a challenging lot, so we have to spend a lot of money grading outside. We have to put a road. So in order to make sense for us, the numbers, we have to put 5 homes. Regarding the neighbors, fortunately, we haven't been able to get in contact. It's a lot of older people living in that community. And because of the virus, so there's no way for. I mean, I drive by a lot, spoke with a couple people, but I mean, they don't feel okay for me, you know, to talk to them or for us to go inside a home, especially, I mean, in these crazy times. So this is like we plan before all this start. We plan to make like a meeting or reunion with the neighborhoods, with the neighbors, and then you know the COVID-19 hits, and then pretty much like. I mean, we pretty much have to change the game plan and just to see what we can do.
So have you reached out to any of those 3 or 4 folks via letter or phone or anything like that?
Yeah, I spoke with one of them. I don't remember the name of it, but one of the olders, actually he wants to sell the home to us. He sent me the survey. I said, we have to wait. If we get this approved, we can look into to buy your home. But right now at this point, we're just waiting.
Thank you.
All right.
Other questions?
So my question is on looking at it from top to bottom of calling the top one, so 2 and 3, are those not decks that Darren was speaking of in blue that are in the floodplain, and those, why are those slabs, or those, can they not be impervious, or are they, I don't know what they are.
So the blue is like that, back patio area, like a small, slab of gray at the back.
So it could be an impervious.
Yes.
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be.
Yes.
Okay, that's what, I think that's what Darren was trying to make a point of earlier, and we kind of
Yeah, we can make that happen.
slip by.
Seems like an easy one to.
Yeah, and,
No, we're fine. We're fine with that.
And actually, let's go back real quick. Actually, we explored different options, and believe me, we moved those homes like probably 50 times in order to make it work. And one of the conclusions that we made yesterday was that like we can do those decks, floating decks, to reduce the impervious area.
And then the second question, you might as well stay there. The second question I have is, he made a comment about that road would only be used by the 4 or 5 residents that live there.
Correct.
And that's incorrect, because that connection, that path, that'll be a footpath from Woodacre subdivision over to Claremont Terrace subdivision, which will eventually lead to the Century Center and the Peachtree Creek Greenway. So we would not want to give up that right of way that we already have. We could have used for that only for the installation of your private driveway. So just that was something that it's incorrect. Maybe it's not going to be used for that right now.
Yeah.
But in the future it would be, and we wouldn't want to have to go in and disrupt those people's lives and how, and just it needs to be done in the beginning, because we also learned that people, about 5 years from now, people go like, oh, well, no, we don't want you putting that in, now. So it needs to be in on day 1.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't know how your plan would contemplate something like that. I'm flexible as far as a full-blown streetscape, but there is definitely going to be a pedestrian connection through there at some point.
All right, we weren't aware of that. That's why I said I.
That's why I mentioned it.
But I mean, we're willing to work. We're willing to see how we can make it work for the residents and for the neighborhood.
Right.
So that's why like your input, every input would be great. So we can just kind of. I mean, right now we're in the phase that we're designing still. So we can make some modifications. Not like moving a house, because that's pretty much gonna kill the project.
We're being asked to approve something, this plan, on Tuesday, so we would need a little more updating before something like that could happen.
Okay.
Just my opinion.
Okay.
Any other questions from the council? Sure, come on up back.
The main reason we did it is not to encroach into those buffers. So if we can do that, but if we do that, that will push us further into the buffers.
Very good.
That's not what you said. You said nobody would use that. You said that. You said that nobody would use that.
No, I understand what you say, but the reason why we did it is just not to get more into the buffer.
I understand.
Yes. You're right. I didn't know about that. I'm sorry.
Very good. Thank you all for being here on that. The next question is,
I had one about while we were still on this. Trust me, I want to get to that too. I didn't hear an opposition. Was there an opportunity for opposition for that one?
There was.
There was?
There was
Okay.
5 sign-ups.
Okay, well, I thought there was, like, it was a little confusing, the whole process. I appreciate everyone being here.
so you wish to speak in opposition?
I was just wondering, because we live in the neighborhood, and there was a lot of opposition to it. People were saying they were going to send emails and stuff. Did that not happen? I just want to make sure everyone had the opportunity to say something. I think you guys pretty well covered what everyone in the neighborhood feels, but I just want to make sure no one got missed in that.
There were no emails sent to the public comment email on this agenda.
Okay, cool. Just want to double check for all the neighbors.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, we're going to move on. Next item is PZ 2020-585, which is 2135 Claremont Terrace. Go.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is a variance for a contextual front yard setback. The site's zone NR1 neighborhood residential, it's about a half acre. The applicant is proposing to split an existing lot and construct a new single-family home. As you know, the UDO section 230 requires contextual front yard setbacks. For this site, it's 40 feet, and the applicant would like to place the building at 21.1 feet, so that's a variance of about 19 feet. The applicant has submitted plans showing that a approximately 3,300 square foot single-family home could be constructed on the lot. The proposed front porch on the plan does go up to 18 feet from the front yard, but that's permitted by the UDO. Front porches can encroach 6 feet by right. The applicant has proposed to construct the required streetscape on Claremont Terrace. There is a substantial amount of flood zone on this property, of which the applicant has submitted a plan showing no construction in that area. I did want to mention that this was sent to the Public Works Department, and the on-call stormwater engineer did provide some comments in that emails in your packet. Here's an aerial photo showing the lot. It's on the corner, a bend in the road. This shows the floodplain. You can see there in the hatched area towards the back. That's all the existing FEMA flood zone with the existing lot. And this exhibit shows how the lot could be subdivided and the new home built on the new lot there to the south. And again, you can see the amount of flood zone that is on that parcel currently. This map also shows the 40-foot setback. That's the dashed line that sits back a little bit further from the street. And then the closer dashed line, that's their proposed setback, 21.1 feet. Here's some elevations they've submitted in red. That's the existing house in the background with the new house shown there in the front. And then some photos of the site showing the existing home and the condition. Because this is a self-created hardship, the staff has recommended denial. However, we do have some conditions for your consideration if you wish to approve, including installation of some in-ground stormwater management infrastructure. We did also suggest an option where a fee in lieu could be paid for the streetscape as opposed to installing it currently, if you would like to also consider that. And that's all we have.
Very good, thanks, Matt. All right, Emmy, do we have anyone signed up to speak in favor?
Yes, sir, I have one, Mr. Strickland, Caleb Strickland.
Hey, I'm Caleb Strickland. I'm the applicant. I also live in the neighborhood at 2030 Claremont Terrace. We used to live here, and then we moved up the street. Put together a little PowerPoint presentation. So again, as we already saw, these are the elevations of the existing house versus the proposed, and really tried to work hard to make sure it didn't tower over the top of the house like we see done a lot of times all throughout Brookhaven and really all over Atlanta. Just trying to preserve the integrity of the neighborhood itself. Next slide. As Matt said, these are some of the pictures from the existing conditions. Do one more, Matt? Maybe the next one. It's kind of hard to see in this photo, but you can see there's some white signs down next to the fence. That's showing the far right and the far left side of where the proposed house would be built. So still a pretty substantial distance off of the road itself. Next slide. So I really just wanted to give some context around the contextual front setback. Front setback is measured from the front property line to the front of the house, and the contextual ordinance requires that to be based off of the two houses to the left and the two houses to the right. And I think I just want to go over the intentions and kind of why it's important and what some of the exceptions could be. I think that the intended purpose of this is to keep everything in line. And next slide, Matt. If you look, this is actually a snapshot of the neighborhood itself. As you're driving down through the neighborhood, all the houses are pretty well in line. Plus or minus 5 to 10 feet. They all are pretty uniform. So when you're driving down the street, nothing's way out in front and nothing's way far back, except for the ones that are in red. And really, I show this just to show that this is what the ordinance is really, the intended purpose behind the ordinance was to do, was to keep everything uniform and contextual. Next slide. This is just a drawing of if you were at the intersection in that corner. That's a little roundabout island thing, not really sure what that is. Some sort of traffic circle there. If you were to stand in that traffic circle right dead center of the corner and look back up the street, back up Claremont Terrace, you would be in line with the existing house. Same thing if you look to the left. The proposed house is visually contextual with all the houses running back up towards, it's on going towards Shalimar. Next slide. As Matt said, this is the existing conditions. I wanted to point this out because that is not a true corner lot, even though that is a substantial bend in the road, it's not defined as a corner lot, which makes it a lot interior. Most lot interiors have two sides, a front, and a rear, but because this is not a corner, that entire street makes it the front side. So this has two sides and a front, which makes it unique, and then makes that front setback run, as you see, all the way around the road. Next slide. Even though that front setback, contextual setback, does make it very difficult to build a house that would actually be beneficial to the neighborhood, I did want to show that this could be done and split with a 19 wide by 24 foot deep. This is just off of deepplans.com or something, but it wouldn't match the neighborhood. It would be very small. It's not really what our neighborhood, in my opinion, is trying to accomplish in the future. Next slide. We hear a lot about the floodplain in the staff report, and that's because a residential lot shall have sufficient buildable area outside of the floodplain so that the future building doesn't encroach into the floodplain. Next slide. This is an email from the stormwater engineer, Jeff Mueller. When we were first going through all this, I asked, are there any floodplain requirements or permits at all if it's completely outside the floodplain? And his answer was no. I just think that's important because the staff report really hammers on the floodplain. Yes, there is a floodplain on this property, but yes, this is drawn completely outside of that floodplain. Next slide. My understanding, as I've become a resident expert on this, unfortunately, the mayor and city council may authorize variances from the provisions of the UDO after making these findings. Next. There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular property in question because of its size, shape, or topography. Again, we already touched on this. Most lot interiors consist of a front yard, rear yard, and two side yards, but because the road does not form an actual intersection, it results in the property along front yard, I'm sorry, that was a mistake on my part. A front yard and two side yards, no rear yard, which is what makes the shape of the property unique, resulting in extraordinary and exceptional conditions. Next slide. The application of this UDO to the particular property would create an unnecessary hardship. I believe that the strict application of this UDO to this particular piece of property would create an unnecessary hardship and be detrimental to the intentions of the UDO itself. The strict application of this UDO would result in front wall of the proposed house being built behind the rear wall of the existing house, which is the exact thing that the UDO was written to prevent. This is why I'm asking for it to be interpreted by its intention and visual contextuality rather than the 38 to 47.9 foot measurements. Next slide. Such conditions are peculiar to the piece of property in question. The flood zone does create peculiar conditions, but as I demonstrated, the flood zone does not make it possible to build a house here. However, applying the contextual front setback requirement does make it difficult to build a house. Next slide. This is the biggest one. After speaking with Matt 2 weeks ago, it really seemed like the biggest thing here was this is a hardship being created of my own doing, requesting to split the lot. The city's opinion is that there would be no need for contextual setback variance if I wasn't splitting this lot into two lots. In other words, the variance request is a result of my actions because it wouldn't be needed if I were to keep the property the way it is and just remodel the existing house. But this is a sketch of a renovation plans I submitted when I first moved in back in April of 2018. I was requesting to add a 2-car garage and a master suite onto the existing house. As you can see, this would also encroach into that same front contextual setback variance, and we'd be right back here, in a month or two. Just showing once again that it really has nothing to do with the floodplain or the second lot being created. It's solely a hardship created by the contextual front setback requirement. Next slide. Relief, if granted, would not cause substantial detriment. Would not cause substantial detriment to the public good nor impair the purposes or intent of this zoning ordinance. Oh, sorry, got two screens going here.
Sorry.
It would not cause substantial detriment to the public good nor impair the purposes or intent of this zoning ordinance. The city says that it would be detrimental to the public. Lost the slides again on the screen. says that it would be detrimental to the public good and would impair the purposes and intent of the zoning ordinance. I believe that relief from this variance would not be detrimental to the public good. This will add additional tax dollars to the community as well as increase the property values for the entire neighborhood. Additionally, relief from this UDO would not impair the intent of the zoning ordinance. As we discussed earlier, the intent is to keep everything uniform and in line, and I've shown how that is still being accomplished. And in fact, the strict application of this contextual front setback requirement to this specific property does more to impair the intent of the UDO than relief from it would do. Next slide. This I just drew up here. One of our neighbors brought up, why don't you just tear the existing house down? He said he didn't have a problem with doing what I have drawn, but he was like, well, if that doesn't work, why don't you just tear it down? And he made a good point, so I drew it up roughly. But the problem I have with it is it would really not preserve the integrity of the way things look in the neighborhood. It would be two tall, skinny houses, and I just really don't see the need to have to tear down a perfectly good house that's existing there and take away from the neighborhood. So it can be done. I would appreciate your consideration in helping me try and preserve the integrity of the neighborhood by building what I have drawn, rather than have to tear down a perfectly good house. That's all I have. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Is anyone else signed up to speak?
No, sir.
Anyone in opposition?
No, sir.
Council has any questions for the applicant? Darren, go ahead first.
I'll start with one for Matt, if you don't mind. Is the interpretation on not having a rear yard setback correct, in your opinion?
Yes, that's correct.
And then for Caleb, you can go ahead and hop up. I'm sure a couple of us will have questions on it. And looking at your plans, one of the things that really struck me, if you go to the view from the rear of the property, is that everyone coming down all of those roads are going to see that. And effectively, that house has three primary elevations, right? It has the two street sides, and then the rear side is effectively the street side as well. It doesn't look like much attention was given to the architecture of that. So wanted to get your thoughts on that first. And then part two of the question relates to the floodplain. I did see in your plans that you put that basement elevation 3 feet above the floodplain elevation. If I recall correctly, that flood elevation was one that's changed in the most recent mapping and likely to change again. Did you give any consideration to bringing that above the 3-foot minimum for flood insurance to say 4 or 5 feet to make sure that there were no problems for any future homeowner if this were approved?
Sure. So the first question on the rear of the house, I had another one drawn up after speaking. I also heard that, I'm sure, from the same person. I had a deck put on the back, and so I can send those updated plans showing what it would look like with a deck put over the second story. It kind of creates an awning over the bottom story, as well as becomes a private deck off the master that's on the main level or second story. And that really did allow it to dress it up like you're mentioning. The second thing, that's a great point. I'm open to making adjustments to the plans. Really, we're looking at does this property have sufficient buildable area outside of the floodplain to split this lot? I drew up plans that show that it's buildable. I'm not 100%, hey, I have to build this house. I think that, as Matt and I discussed, there's some things that could potentially be from a future building permit or trying to split a lot standpoint. It's probably rare in the city of Chamblee, as there's not a whole lot of ability to do this. But I would love to have just gotten there is plenty of buildable area to build this house, and we'll pull building permits down the road and not have to draw plans. So essentially, yes, I'm not opposed to bringing the house up higher or any of that.
And then one other follow-up, and this will be the last one. We can go back to the demo plan.
The which plan? I'm sorry.
The one that showed the two new houses, two smaller houses. It was one of the last slides.
I think the very last slide or second to last slide.
Of yours?
Oh, correct.
Yeah, it is. Sorry. The thing, when I look at this, the thing I'm looking at is, it's not so much the lot size. I think you've done a good job proving that
question, you're asking just how I got to this exact angle that the house is lined up at on this drawing.
I guess what I'm really asking is in the context of this or the other plan, explain to me kind of how it fits in. I understand the corner and visual setbacks, but as you're walking past that, I think it would still feel like it's kind of tacked on the side. It seems like there are ways to avoid that. So how do you explain that, or how would you address that, I guess would be a better question.
So not for this one, so for the one I'm proposing variance for here for, not the.
Either or. To me, this seems like this with some changes seems like a better plan that would fit in better with the neighborhood. I understand you don't want to tear down the existing house. I'm just kind of asking for the logic behind that. How would it fit in?
So it's really not that much different. In fact, if you just took house number 2 there and just kind of rotated it 20 degrees to where the front, what would be the bottom right corner of that house number 2, if you rotated it down, it would be right over the top of that circle there, which is the tree. So it's not that much different, to be honest. The existing house as it is at almost the exact angle that house number 1 is. This would just be knocking down the existing house, keeping virtually that exact same angle that it's facing now, but just shrinking it 1 wide like it is currently, which then gives me enough room to slide house number 2. That's drawn almost identical to the house I proposed to build with the variance, but just sliding it over, changing the angle of that 20 degrees or whatever that would be. So I agree, it is going to be almost the exact same, which is why I would also request that we don't have to tear down a perfectly good house to really have, minuscule differences.
So my big concern about this project is not conceptual setbacks, not how it presents to the road and all that, is the drainage in the back of the property. I mean, you were there together, it's kind of a mess. It's kind of cobbled together. I wouldn't want to pass this on to a new homeowner, that problem, and I wouldn't want to have to go back in after they say been living there for a few years to have to come in and have all that. Have you explored the possibility of how that might be repaired and brought up to today's standards? And if that was a condition, would that be addressed, and try to move that forward? Is that something I'm just kind of curious? I don't like kicking the can down the road, and I don't want to have somebody else have to deal with it, later on.
I completely agree. No one wants that to get fixed more than I do. I'd have to get that over to Public Works and see what the status is. We've been working on that for 2 years now, so a little bit of a loaded question. But yeah, I'm very motivated to get that fixed.
And I don't know exactly where the boundaries go between, your participation in doing the project. I mean, a lot of times the developer does all the infrastructure, and then comes to the city and says, this is what I'm building, and this is, storm drains, storm ponds, and all that already in there. I
believe the city's official recommendation was that it was functioning perfectly fine as is. Although I agree with everything you said earlier, that was their official statement in March of last year. But
I would like to hear a little more. I'd like to explore that on my own a little bit more before.
I will meet you at the property anytime you want to come discuss it.
No, I guess it needs to be kicked down to the staff level or up to the staff or whatever it is to have that addressed. So that's it. That's all I have.
Okay. All right, very good. Leslie, did you have a question?
I've already answered it. I couldn't wrap my head around how the retaining wall to the driveway works, but I figured it out.
Okay, all right, very good. Anybody? No? All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Moving right along. Next item is PZ 2020621, which is 4637 Buford Drive variance.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is a variance for the supplemental standards for veterinary clinics. Zone neighborhood commercial NC1, approximately a quarter-acre parcel. In this case, the applicant is proposing to reduce the 100-foot requirement for veterinary clinics for spacing between a veterinary clinic and a parcel that is either zoned or used residentially. This is in the supplemental use standards, which is section 240 of the UDO. The site is an existing approximately 2,300 square foot building. There are no renovations proposed. This is a fairly iconic building in the city. It's on Buford Drive, and it has the small Statue of Liberty in the front, so everybody's probably familiar with that. The applicant is proposing to relocate an existing veterinary clinic that's outside of the city onto this property. And there are residential properties adjacent to the rear, which I'll show you in just a second. The applicant is proposing to fully soundproof the building and to not have any outdoor boarding or outdoor animals whatsoever. The clicker's defective. There we go. So there's a site plan. No renovations proposed for the building. This is just demonstrating how parking would be used on the site, and that red line shows the rear property next to the residential. And here's the aerial. So you can see Buford Drive is a frontage road that parallels Buford Highway. And the parcels along Buford Drive are all commercially used, and then there's a residential neighborhood behind. John needs new batteries.
What kind are they?
AAA. It's new though, isn't it? So there is the 100-foot spacing requirement for veterinary clinics. We have recommended approval of this request due to that soundproofing, and there are several conditions of approval, including that soundproofing, and then also no outdoor keeping of animals, no overnight boarding, and then also that they plant some permanent landscaping at the rear of the site to strengthen that buffer in the back. And that's all I have.
Great, thanks, Matt. Do we have anybody here to speak on this?
Yes, sir. Is it Janet Sky? Janet, sure. Thank you. Sorry. I have a last name like that.
Hi, good evening. My name is Janet Shuigin. I am the owner of North Hills Animal Hospital for 5 years already. So I'm kindly ask you to please consider the approval of this variance, which is within 100 feet of the property, which is for residential purpose. I'm more than willing to work with the city. I understand there are some conditions, and we're more than willing to fulfill any of those. We have actually a quick question. My contractor asked, we have no problem of planting the buffer, which may fulfill the condition. He asked if it's possible to, instead of doing this planted buffer, to install an 8 feet tall vinyl privacy fence, which will provide noise reduction and protection from the rear, to the rear property against noise or traffic or the building owner seeing any dogs or clients. I also understand that animals may have the potential of zoonotic disease, so that way I will not have any outdoor kennels, any outdoor veterinary facilities that may affect or compromise the health of any of the residents. We will have an indoor pet relief area, such as Atlanta or Denver airports. And also, we will have noise barriers within the building, like noise canceling or noise reduction, padding on the walls, and that's up to my contractor to do that job. So we're more than willing to do that on where the canine patients are going to be hosted for the day. There are not going to be any hospitalizations overnight, with the exception of some canine patients which are regular to the hospital. And again, we are willing to work with the city to make the residents comfortable. North Hills Animal Hospital has been serving the area for the last 23 years. It has been under my direction for the last 5. We serve thousands of clients and their pets, and I thank you all for considering this approval, and it will be an honor to serve the citizens of Chamblee and their pets.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else signed up to speak?
I have one more. Ezekiel Lawrence speaking in favor.
Good afternoon, sorry. Ezekiel Lawrence, I'm actually a technical advisor to Dr.
Shwiking, and we want to appreciate the chance for everybody to get the opportunity to open the hospital in your city. Dr. Shwiking pretty much mentioned all of the changes that we were planning to do. For if you might have the question in the future, for soundproofing inside, we're planning to use passive soundproofing, which is pretty much wall soundproofing around any area where the dogs are going to be kept. Also, the kennels are going to be situated in an area where really they're not going to create a lot of noise going towards the outside. Now, the property that is in the back is actually quite more than the 100 feet that it dictates, but we understand that the zoning is from property line to property line, but there is really no homes within the 100 feet from the building. So we're very confident that any sound coming from the building will not be able to be heard anywhere in the surrounding area. Other than that, just adding to everything that Dr. Shwiking said, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. That was it, Amy?
Yes, sir.
And no one in opposition?
No, sir.
Okay, very good. Does the council have any questions for the applicant or the staff?
I have two questions. I didn't quite understand. But they're going to be inside. Indoors. And the exception to the no overnight boarding will come about when? If you have to board a pet overnight?
We are not going to board any pets. The only reason why I have kennels is for my surgical patients, which is mainly our focus of practicing veterinary medicine. It's advanced surgery. It's the hospitalization patients at 11 o'clock and then discharge around 6 to 7.
Okay. That's it.
Any other questions?
I just had one for staff. If the soundproofing proves to be inadequate and there are complaints from neighbors, is this revisitable? Is this like, oh, okay, now we're going to come back and ask for some more?
Yeah, it would, we could enforce it through code enforcement through the conditions of approval for soundproofing. We could also use the city's noise ordinance to test and see if there's a violation.
Thank you.
Well, can I follow up on that? Is there a way to test it after it's installed, before it's open?
Sure.
I think that would be the better way to go.
Okay.
John had a question?
The Statue of Liberty, what's happening with the Statue of Liberty?
This day.
We decided to keep it. It's iconic. We have surveyed all of our clients, 3,000 already, and everybody is like, oh, I know where the statue is, so it has become iconic.
Great.
It's iconic.
Public art. Anything else? All right. Going once, going twice. We're going to move on. We have one more item then underneath the public hearing this evening. We have PZ 2020-622, which is 5784 Peachtree Boulevard variances.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is a request for 10 variances and 1 waiver on a property zone CC corridor commercial. It's approximately 0.8 of an acre. And in this case, the applicant is requesting to construct a drive-through conveyor car wash. The first couple variances, or the first variances is to reduce the amount of required open space down to 15.9%. There's also variances to not have the building adjacent to the supplemental zone. Variances in 3, 4, and 5 are all related to the property's designation as being on the storefront street. 3 and 4 related to a motor vehicle related use on a storefront street, and variance 5 for a drive-through facility. Variances 6 is for outdoor storage for the car wash. Then there's variances for off-street parking and the drive-through facility itself being located between the building and the street. Variance 9 is for off-street loading space that is planned in a way that could potentially interrupt parking lot circulation. Variance 10 is to allow a dumpster to not be in the rear yard. And then the loan waiver is to not provide all of the required inter-parcel connectivity. The applicant does propose to demolish and clear the existing site. This is the Jiffy Lube located on Peachtree Boulevard. The applicant has submitted plans showing construction of about a 3,300 square foot drive-through car wash building. As I mentioned, Peachtree Boulevard is a storefront street, which requires ground floor retail, and pedestrian-oriented uses, and restricts the placement of motor vehicle-related uses in drive-throughs on properties that abut storefront designated streets. They are proposing to install the required streetscape on Peachtree Boulevard, which is currently lacking. They do have 20 parking spaces, the majority of those for vacuum areas, and then a few for employee parking. The applicant has proposed some screening walls to help screen some of the vacuum areas you'll see in your plans. Did want to mention there is a 20-foot sanitary sewer easement that we've asked questions about because they are showing development in that, and just wanted to bring that to your attention. And then the interparcel access, they are showing feature stub into the CVS property, but not the other two adjoining properties. Here's the aerial. You can see the CVS just to the south, and this is the Jiffy Lube property in blue. World Toyota is also adjacent. Here is the site plan showing the drive-through lanes, pay kiosks, and parking area in between the building, the car wash building, and the street. And then the applicant has submitted some four-sided elevations for your review and consideration. Also, here's some site photos. Again, this is the Jiffy Lube site you can see here, and then some photos of the frontage showing the gap in sidewalks. There are some sidewalks adjacent to the street on adjoining properties. Finally, staff does recommend denial of the request. Conditions, and then some extra conditions related to additional landscaping, and then just coordinating on any work in the sanitary sewer easement. Put emphasis on that, but of course that would be required as part of the development process. And that's all I have.
Great, thanks, Matt. I mean, do we have anybody who signed up to speak in favor?
Yes, sir, I have one, Mr. Jeff Carter.
Good evening. I am Jeff Carter with Carter Engineering Consultants, and Oliver Pryor is here with me. He is the developer. I will be the property owner. I'm sorry, just bear with me 1 second, and I'll get it together. Just wanted to describe a little bit about our car wash project. It is a fully enclosed car wash, so you don't have to get out of your car. You pay the money, and you roll right through the car wash. There is some vac stations that if you want to, after you get your car washed, you can pull up, get out of your car, and vacuum your car out. It is a very high quality car wash development. I've been working in this field for several years, and they're really are very nice buildings. I hope that you were able to take just a minute to look at the building elevations. Primarily brick and stone, so it's a very nice car wash. The existing property, as staff said, is a Jiffy Lube. So in terms of the existing use, it is already an automotive related use, and it actually, you drive through that building. The difference is you pull up and you get out, and somebody else takes your car through. Whereas here, it's really not changing the use. I mean, we're still got the same use on the property. We do feel like that, I think you would agree, at least from what I see, the future is greatly greater numbers of electric vehicles that'll be driving our streets, and there'll always be need for a car wash, but not necessarily a Jiffy Lube. So we think this is a good use of the property. And just in terms of an environmental, just to kind of give you some data, the owner is going to put in a water reclaim system that reclaims about 65% of the water. There's a lot of data out there that we'd be happy to provide to you that actually shows a car wash like this, a really nice high-end car wash. Uses less water than, of course, the old style car washes, but even less than if you were at home washing your car. So it's it's a very, you hear me say it several times, a very, very nice development. I don't think, as a matter of fact, I'm confident when I say the city doesn't have anything like this, at least to this level. And also, I don't claim to be an expert on this, but I do know that this property is in what is termed the motor mile within the city, and I printed this off of the city website. And the vision for the motor mile corridor will continue to be a major regional shopping destination for auto sales and service, though local commercial areas will be primarily auto-oriented in their marketing. Future land use will reflect a mixed-use urban development that is pedestrian and bicycle-friendly and visually appealing to visitors. So we are dead smack in the middle of the commercial designation in the motor mile. So we do feel like this is a good location. There are a couple of hardships that we feel like are on the property that I did want to point out. And there's really three things, and I hope you can see this map. I do have some 11 by 17s I'll be glad to give you if you can't see it. I know it's kind of small. But there's really three things that kind of come into play. Or really is striving to have the buildings up close to the street. And while we would be happy to do that if we could, we can't. And there's really three things. In this type of use, as you can see on the screen, if you could picture the building up next to the road, with 100% of our customers that come into the site are going to go through the tunnel. And so if you think about cars entering and exit are going to be right at the street. And so what happens in busy times and peak time, to have cars that are going to be bottlenecked at the entrance. And in our opinion would create a traffic situation really nobody would desire. The second thing I want to point out is staff said there is a sanitary sewer easement that runs right through the middle of our property. And if you can see on this map, the red dashed line is the actual property boundary. The red building is the existing Jiffy Lube building. And then the green swath through here is the public sanitary sewer line that DeKalb County owns. The sewer line is about 15 feet deep, which is pretty deep in terms of the sewer lines. And we can't put a building on a sewer easement. You can't put a permanent structure in the sewer easement. So that's why Jiffy Lube building is where it is. It's because of the sewer easement. And if I flip over, this will demonstrate where the sanitary sewer easement is relative to this site plan. So really, this is really honestly the only place the building can go because of that sewer easement. Now, I will admit, we have relocated sewer easements in the past. It is not 100% you cannot relocate it, but even if we relocated it, we still would have the same problem. It has to be relocated on our property. It's 15 feet deep. We would have to deal with DeKalb County, and so I think a lot of this is just screaming out it's a hardship, and again, in our opinion. The third thing is the shape of the property. If you look in the back property, it's 239 feet wide in the back of the property. And as you can kind of see towards Peachtree Boulevard, it narrows down to 187 feet. So there's a significant difference between the back of the site and the front of the site. So again, even if we could move the building up towards Peachtree Boulevard, I mean, we can't because of the property width. So those three things I think are really important. I did want to point out, I work with a lot of different clients, a lot of different developers. Mr. Pryor is definitely willing to go the extra mile to make this a really nice development and do what he can do to meet the city standards. So one thing that we have come up with in the last few days, I hope you'll like, but there's three things I think that really play into this. Number one, we are willing absolutely to meet all the streetscape standards. That I know that's something that's important to y'all, and there will be the full streetscape standards. These are building elevations. This is a perspective view of the same building elevations you just saw. This is the building in the back of the site, and this perspective is from the street, okay, from the entrance. And what we've done is designed a parapet, a building facade that will meet the city standards, that will be right up on the pedestrian zone of the street. So as you're walking down the street, if you want to walk up to the car wash, you can come right through the middle. There'll be a path right through to the car wash. If you want to take a break on the benches, you can. This will be a nice gathering area. The building itself will not be used, but it'll give you the visual as you pass by or you walk by as a building. And it will match very closely to this building in terms of the brick finishes and the glass treatment and all that. The third thing I wanted to point out that we very, very seldom do, I can think of one other time we've ever done this, and that is provide a masonry wall around the front to hide all of the cars that might be there to vacuum the cars out. So if you can see here, there's no way you can see the cars because the wall is going to come up to 6 feet high. So I hope that you can see that we are trying to do our best to meet the intent of the ordinances. We respect that, we understand that, but there are some things we can't meet. And so we would appreciate your support, and I'm sure Mr. Pryor will be glad to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you very much. That's all we had?
I actually have two summaries for you that were emailed in.
Okay.
The first one is from Christian Davis at 1910 Harts Mill Road. He said that this appears to be an appropriate location due to it being around multiple automotive related businesses. And Craig Seaman at 3140 Park Ridge Crescent stated that he thought this would serve the community well. He also said that it was located near many other automotive businesses. Again, this is just a summary of the comments that were emailed from these two individuals. The full comments were emailed and shared with the council in an email earlier today.
Very good, thank you. Is that all we had on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll open it up now for questions. Council have any questions? Darren, go right ahead.
On this drawing right here, where's this fake building gonna be on that? I'm kind of confused.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So the site plan is what we, all right, so the original site plan that we submitted had a building, no sir, originally, because we thought that if we did that, we could not have to ask for so many variances. And so working with staff, they said, no, even if you have that, you gotta ask for the variances. So well, if you gotta ask for the variance, let's don't put it on there. So this right here is not reflected on that site plan. I know that's a complicated answer, but it's not on there.
So what is located in these, what is the purpose of these spaces right here? Is this where your vacuum stations are, or is this just general parking?
Yes, sir, those are vacuum spaces, that'll be behind the wall. As well as the dumpster too. I didn't mention that, but the dumpster is behind. You won't be able to see
this is the dumpster?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And the wall goes all the way around behind the dumpster.
So wouldn't it make sense to put turn this into some sort of screening structure that would hide, for two purposes? It would bring the front face closer to the road, give you a illusion, but it would also hide all this mechanical equipment and hoses and all that. And then you could screen this road by just, like you said, like a short wall, and just kind of some sort of wall that.
Right where you're touching right now, that's where the big thing that he's proposing is gonna go.
Thank you. That's exactly
Yeah,
That's where
I think it's kind of
building facade.
I mean, I guess if that's on the table, I would rather look to have a more up-to-date presentation or drawing or submission, site plan.
And we do.
Very confusing about, this and that, and how that's all supposed to be stitched together, and so that's
And we will be glad to provide that tomorrow. We just got this through. So we have the site plan that we can email staff or whoever would like to look at it.
What I said or this, I mean, because I would like
This
to
right
see you
here.
even think about, like I said, screening all this, with a I mean, it could, then it's actually, cause I think a fake building up at the front doing nothing is kinda stupid. But at least if you had a fake building thing here that had, you know, shaded, protected, you know, places for people to, vacuum their cars, it actually would say, well, why did they do that? They would say, oh, well, that's just, it's kind of, you know, the average person was not looking at the code, just like, why we got this shit out on the road that serves no purpose? It just seems kind of a.
So you prefer having something taller, as opposed to this right up next to the front, and towards the back, having something taller that looks like a building facade, is that what I'm understanding?
Screen all the, it would be right here,
Right.
and have a wall that went up this way, so when you pulled into these parking spaces, you were to vacuum your car, cause you said the vacuum equipment's in here, right?
Yes.
Then you would be under that, and be a protected area. People looking down the road would not see a line of people vacuuming out their cars, they would be on.
What they're gonna see though, John, is a line of cars, so I'm just gonna jump in, and just tell you
Right.
my
I understand.
opinion on it. You know, even the car dealerships now are building their dealerships up to the road. I say even because it took us a long time to get to that point. I think the idea of putting some type of facade up front to give that same appearance, I agree, there's some challenging parts about this with this stretch of Peachtree Boulevard, that being that it is Auto Row, however, it's a storefront street, there's some conflicting signals there for sure. I think the intent is not to hide the people in their consistent urban feel, even when you have an automobile-related industry business, so that you don't see the cars that are queued up in the driveway. That's why we don't allow driveways in front of buildings.
So I'm gonna piggyback on that, because I agree with the mayor. I think the idea of some sort of pedestrian plaza or gathering point, or something that kind of creates that activity zone at the street is important. I like the idea of a screen building. I don't like the idea of an empty shell per se. It would be great if you could create some sort of activity zone there, however small it may be. Maybe it could be something that could tie into the operations. Maybe it could be a little snack bar if someone wants to grab something while they're vacuuming, staffed by employees, but something to get some activity there versus just a shell. I mean, a shell's gonna look like a shell if you use it to screen the vacuum equipment, which really isn't that big to begin with, and you've got your canopy. Then you're gonna have, you know, either blacked out windows, or you're gonna have open spaces, and you're not really gonna hide anything. It's gonna look fake and contrived.
Yes.
So I like the idea of a building or a pedestrian plaza or some sort of landscaping that maybe creates a buffer, but I think it needs to be an activity zone versus just maybe an empty building for vagrants to stay in overnight. I do not like the idea of a 6-foot wall at all. I understand where you're coming from. I think, you know, a knee wall might make sense with some plantings or things like that, but I would hate for it to have the wall. It's expensive and maybe aesthetically pleasing. I think it'll give it the appearance of a compound. I'd rather have a lower wall and some plantings and maybe see some cars with people through that than be looking at a 6 or 8 foot tall wall. And I would just say that I think that the changes that you're proposing will directionally correct. I think more towards the things that we'd like to see are good. I think it's something that's probably a substantial enough change that it's something that our staff might have a chance to review and provide feedback on. I agree there's a need there. I agree it kind of makes sense in the corridor. I mean, the reasons the need's there, I think you guys are close. We just need a little bit more time for staff to look at the final plan and the administration of that versus us to look at it over 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
Leslie?
I'd like to piggyback on what Darren is saying. I don't like the idea of those walls either, but, green screens would be beautiful. You could certainly put, trellis and row of vinyl, and that would be, and it could be 6 feet tall, and it would do a great job, and be a living wall as well. Not that hard to take care of either, nor expensive to install. I understand that, you know, we talked about this, the semblance of a building pulled up to the street. It seems to me like you could easily benefit from having some sort of retail there that is to go with what people want, you know, like pine trees, scent, things that you hang from your, or, you know, cup phone holders, or something that's related to, you know, accessorizing your car, armor all, things like that. I agree, especially when Darren said for vagrants to sleep in, I went, oh, yes, of course. So, I think something like that would be, a great use for that. And it would probably also maybe entice a little bit more walk-up traffic, so.
Darren or Brian? No, Brian?
I mean, I can only say the same thing that's already been said. I think you're gonna hear this around the table. The wall, for me, is a safety concern. You know, it's a car wash, right? We're not trying to hide that it's a car wash. And when you put all your vacuums and your folks working behind a 6-foot wall or something, you know, the possibility for something to happen to somebody is there. So I would rather not, I would like to see it screened, but not with a 6-foot concrete wall. And the same thing that everybody else has said, let's figure out a way to activate the frontage. You know, a fake building is not activating the street, and you want to see an active street. So,
We can absolutely put a vending machine with sodas and waters, as well as the Armor All lights and the air fresheners and all that kind of stuff in that front building.
will there be any other detailing on the property? Is it just people gonna drive through and wash their cars and then go over and park it, or will it be like some of the others where there's actual detail crews out there detailing and all of that kind of stuff? So it's basically self-service, you're doing all of your own stuff, right?
Yes, this is called an express model, which is you go through the tunnel and you have the free vacuums available for your personal use. And vacuuming or cleaning out the inside of your car.
Gotcha.
So, if I understand this correctly, this is pretty similar to the camel car wash model in terms of the stuff here.
Yes.
Could you not just put the small office up front? And I know you kind of always have that tucked in the back, but you'll have 2 or 3 people there. They can still supervise, watch, do those things.
We'll be happy to take a look at it. I mean, I don't know that we can answer that right at the moment.
Is there staff? Is there somebody there
Yes.
during the open hours?
Yes, and the reason for the design as it is now is to have the office kind of in the front right section of the tunnel, because you want your people as close as possible to where people are entering and going through that tunnel for safety reasons. So that if anything were to go wrong, they're right there on top of it immediately.
It seems like you could find something that would drive incremental traffic or incremental revenue that would offset the cost of doing it. So, I mean, it's not meant to be punitive, just get bodies up there.
Anything else? Nope. Good conversation. Thank you, gentlemen, for
Thank
being
you for
here.
your time, appreciate it.
All right, very good. Without objection, we will adjourn the public hearing. I will then call to order the work session. We've got a few action items to go over here. I don't believe we have any announcements, presentations. City Clerk, we have the approval of the minutes for the City Council public hearing and work session of April 16th. Is there any discussion on that? We have the City Council regular meeting minutes of April 21st. Bueller. Good job, Emmy. Nothing there, and nothing else under your title. City Manager, there he is. When did you get here?
Just
you
now.
are going to talk to us about the sale of land for GDOT right-of-way.
Yes, Mayor. GDOT is proposing to purchase 0.155 acres, a little strip of land off of the property that we have the public safety building under construction on, and they are offering us $213,000 for it. I would suggest selling this property to them for their sidewalk.
Okay. Any questions?
Can we get more?
And that's so they can put in a sidewalk.
That's for them to put in their future
So that's
sidewalk
like,
project.
aside from the 200 and whatever it was.
Right.
The sidewalk is.
Right.
How does that impact us with the sidewalk? Do we not install it then?
No.
Well, we are installing the sidewalk in front of the building, and that's going to be wider than what GDOT wants to build on Buford Highway. They're going to build something very similar to what you see in the other areas on Buford Highway.
Could we not, you guys might jump on in there, I'm looking at you, but could we not try and install their sidewalk and get them to pay for the land and the installation? I mean, it seems like we're doing double work, spending double money unless we locations are totally different?
But they're different.
They're
They're
different.
different locations, or?
They're different locations.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, we will be building, the sidewalk immediately in front of the, public safety building, and it'll be part of the more plaza area, so.
Got it.
Does that mean that this, building of the their building of the sidewalk is imminent?
I can't speak to that.
Other questions? All right, John, you got another one. You've got 2020 revised budget.
Thank you, Mayor. We did take some time and go through the budget with everything going on related to coronavirus. One of the impacts on local government has been an impact on our revenue stream. We are expecting and have seen a drop in sales tax, a drop in hotel motel tax, a drop in fines and forfeitures and other fees along really up and down the revenue streams. So what we've done is we went through the budget and identified several cuts. I have more detail in the packet for you, but essentially what we've proposed is about $2.5 million in cuts. Some of that is from what we found was a spreadsheet error. So it really comes down to about 1.850,000 in cuts to the budget. And then we are asking for about 1.7 million additional in using our reserve balance. We believe at this time it's important that we take this seriously and that we prepare, but we don't want to overreact and cut too deeply too fast. We do feel that this 10% cut is pretty significant. Every department contributed, and we are seeking approval for this budget amendment. Just a couple of high points. We are not cutting any full-time staff positions with this. This is coming through essentially cutting most of the enhancements that we had added to the budget in the budget cycle last year. We have cut public programming, including summer camps, through July, because that's really where we are right now. And we have done a hiring freeze on open positions, and we have reviewed and are looking at our capital projects and what we can continue to do there. Obviously, our SPLOS funds are lower, so we're not going to be able to move forward with some of our capital projects until the money is collected.
Very good. Questions? Great job. Yeah, thank you very much for that hard work for the staff and for all the staff work through all these difficult times. So, moving right along, turn the page. After the development department, for those of you that may have tuned in later, we have went over those items during the time of the public hearing in order to allow the folks to, well look, they all cleared out. As you all know, this has been a pretty short agenda. Staff's done a great job of trying to keep some of this shorter so that we can keep moving forward. We will on Tuesday evening have a second read of an ordinance. It would be third-party inspections, plans, review ordinance, mayor and council items, citizen comment. Did we have any citizen comments? I see no one's here signed up. Did we have anything sent to us?
We did. We had 2 people signed up that have obviously left, but I did have one comment that came in from Jordan Fox at 2423 Woodacres Road, Chamblee, Georgia. Mr. Fox stated that the Chamblee police has always had an excellent reputation, and he stated his concerns regarding a recent incident. He said that this has not gotten much attention as it normally would due to the COVID-19 crisis, and he's made some recommendations of what he would like to see happen in response. Again, this is just a summary of the comments that were emailed. The full comments were shared with the mayor and council via email earlier today.
Very good. Is that all we have?
That's all we have.
I'd like to make one if I can.
Sure. Go right ahead, Darren.
I just take my mask off, because I just want to take a minute to commend really the entire team here at the city. I think you've all done a phenomenal job in what amounts to a very, very difficult circumstance with very, very rapid adjustment. So specifically, I'd like to commend John on your management and oversight, Emmy on your digitization. Matt, I know you were mostly already digital, but I think you've done a tremendous job managing that shift and the field inspections and everything else. And then also just in your presentation tonight here, being as seamless as it is, it's clear that the team's either working together really, really well or you're doing it all your own. Don't tell me which one it is, but just great job here tonight pulling that all together in challenging times. I think Parks and Rec has done a phenomenal job adjusting programming to needs. I think Catherine, Laura, and Brittany have done a great job with outreach and communication. Some of the materials we're sharing in a fun, informative, and knowledgeable manner, and I'm sure I'm leaving a ton of folks out. The finance team, same thing, switching to digital and with the changes in leadership there. So just wanted to take a minute to recognize really everyone for the hard work they're doing, Public Works, police, as well. It's been really, really great to see everyone's pulled together and really made our job easy. And I guess I would be remiss without mentioning the mayor as well for his leadership and management and for putting up with all of us and more specifically me. So just great job to everyone.
Thank you, Darren. Anyone else?
I concur.
Very good. Yeah, I think we all very fortunate that we have the team that we have. I've told all of the council members, I've told our we have a phenomenal team coming into this COVID crisis. We've seen that we've done a great job, I believe, in managing the city, and I believe we will have a even stronger team coming out of this. So I appreciate y'all being here. I know it wasn't ideal. I know that we needed to meet because we had several items on the public hearing. Our attorneys had advised us that we should not hold public hearings via teleconference, and that there were some legal ramifications if we did. So one of the things we look out for is the best interest of the city legally, in these cases. So appreciate you being here. I believe that the staff has done a great job of setting us up in a very safe manner here. And so before I walk out of here and get even closer than 6 feet to you, I'll put my mask back on. So. All right, well, thank you all very much. Without objection, we will call this meeting adjourned.